So my name's Lea Medhurst. I'm fairly new to the Brisbane tech scene. I've worked for a couple of big vendors around the place. I've only just recently moved back to Brisbane. But I now work for a company called Revelian, and they've given me the title of CTO. We've heard a lot today about what CTOs are and what they do, but I think I've nailed what CTOs do. And in my role, I am the Chief Meeting Attender. That is absolutely what I do. Internal, external, I attend meetings day in, day out. But anyway, I thought I'd try to share with you, like I said, I'm fairly new to this company. I've only been around 18 months. How I took this particular company from, it's a 20-year-old company here in Brisbane, and tried to grow it internationally, and how we've moved throughout the globe. So I had this down as how to scale, but after hearing a couple of talks today, I reclaim that. It's how Lee made the best, worst choices. And it's definitely a disclaimer. This is just our story about how we went forward. This is the second last session today. So what I want to try and do is make this interactive. Everyone's been sitting down. I've been sitting at the back. If your backside is like mine, please feel free to stand up, walk around, whatever you've got to do. But if you've got questions along the way, please yell out. But I do have to find out one thing first. Is anyone here from Stafford? That is excellent. All right. This is Revelian. Like I said, 20-year-old company. That's our office there on the left. Does anyone know what the building is down the end there? Yeah, it is Bunnings. You can't quite see it across the road, but there's a smash repair across the road. And I had to actually go on Google Maps and find this photo, because when I went to our marketing team, they'd actually photoshopped everything around it out. But actually, that's where we are. And what we've done is taken that company that's been in Stafford for many, many years, and this will become important when we talk about culture later. And this is where we were last week. Anyone recognise any of those buildings? This is why I may stumble across some of my words. This is the head office for Johnson & Johnson, which we signed last week. That one is an office in 470 Madison Ave in New York. I can't mention that client name. But the bottom one down the left there is the headquarters for PepsiCo. They're all clients of ours now. So, you know, taking a company from Stafford and changing it into a company that can sell to those organisations has been a big journey. So I'm going to share with you some of those things. Now, this is why I had to check if no one's from Stafford. Being from Staffo is not all bad. We're experts on the sausage debate. We can tell you that the onions definitely go on top. And we have great facilities in Stafford, Bargain City, Stafford City. If you're there on every second Wednesday afternoon, it's very educational. Oh, shut down. It's gone now, sadly. Yeah, it's a coffee shop now. Damn hipsters. Stafford doesn't have any hipsters, by the way. All right, moving on. Being from Stafford, it does affect the mentality of the company. It's a 20-year-old company, and we always think we're from Stafford. How can we go and tackle the world? So let's have a look at some of the things I've introduced into Revelian. So let's go through and talk about the journey. That second point is absolutely true. When I arrived there 18 months ago, we had a problem with one of our clients. It was the Australian Federal Police. They were doing a bulk set of testing, and they said, we're having some performance issues. And I went, right, I'll go see the client. Expected to rock in to see hundreds of people doing testing. There were 27. Okay, that's a bit of a problem. 27 was the most concurrent number of users they could have 12 months ago. So that was going to have to be addressed. So we worked on that. All right. But I thought I might introduce what Revelian actually does. So the first thing we needed to go global was a great product. We actually produce psychometric tests. So this is the ability to measure someone's cognitive ability, if you like. Has anyone done any of these? I sincerely apologise. This is what a traditional psychometric test looks like. Let me show you what Revelian does. Now, I've noticed no one today has attempted a demonstration, so I'm going to give one a go now. So, and I'll probably fall over and flat my face. So this is taking an idea of a psychometric assessment, and you cannot believe how much I hate that sound. And then being able to present it in a game-based fashion. This is our tutorial, so I'll just skip through this. But the idea here is, like, I've got to make the same shape. They obviously get harder as you go along. But what I can do from a technology perspective here is that I can now, I capture the mouse movements when I move and drag and drop that piece. Okay, so, and then I rotate it. Now, that's all well and good. That's one game. Let me give you an example of what sort of insights I can gather from these types of games. So this one is where you need to do a mathematical problem. So I'm going to fail this in front of an audience. But I can follow the mouse, and if I change my mind, or I click the wrong answer, or I diddy-daddly about, they're all data points I can capture to help understand how this person might perform. How is the, what's their propensity to risk, for example, not just their cognitive ability. So we had a really great product. Let me just show you a quick one of our new products, which is measuring emotional intelligence. Not because it's anything exciting, but it was a great process. So I have a research and development lab up there in Stafford, believe me, across the road from the smash preparers. We have doctors and PhDs and all that sort of guys working this stuff out. And we got actors in to pull faces. How much fun was that? 3,000 photos we got up there to get that product going. Heck of a lot of fun.
Off the same guy?
No, there's more guys. We did make them all. I just find, why is everyone that does these, why is their name Igor or Fred or those bizarre Eastern European names? I'm going to prove that there are more people.
It's Igor.
It's Igor already, and they come up with these names. Here you go. John is running late. There's John. Yeah. We took thousands of photos of actors, got them in, and we turned it into an emotional intelligence game. So the point there is not that we're cool, but that's some really innovative products. So we had a great product, and we had a great history of innovation. We had a great history of innovation in psychometrics. We had a pretty poor history, not to leave this room, in technology. So that was the thing that really needed to be worked on, and that was my task when I came in. On my first day, my CEO, who I absolutely love, said, your task is to get all that stuff working on a mobile device. And I said, why? Why do I want it running on a mobile? He says, because that's the impediment for actually selling to other clients. Of what type of clients? International clients, right? So I actually drove through what she actually wanted, and it was to grow internationally. We had probably an $8 million business here in Australia, and we probably dominate the Australian market. What we were missing out on is all that revenue that's overseas. All right, so we had to scale the company up. Here's some things that we learnt. So we needed to understand the target market. Okay. The buyer overseas, and I'll put this into context that we're a business-to-business type of company, so we're not selling business to consumer, although that may happen very soon. We found that the people we were selling to were much more sophisticated than the Australian market. Now that doesn't mean they're any smarter, but they went through a lot more due diligence in actually purchasing a product. So we needed to shift and adjust to meet that. The other thing we found when we were trying to understand the market going forward is, I heard someone today say that salespeople are evil, but they need to understand the process, the procurement process to actually sell to the international market. So we needed to understand what we were trying to sell and who we were trying to sell it to. That was a big lesson. The technology was important. Like I said, we had 27 users when I arrived. Anyone want to guess what technology Revelian was built on when I arrived? Flash. That was part of it. I managed to get rid of that. Anyone think any older technology? Oh, close, worse. Fox Pro. Oh, not quite that bad. We were built on Cold Fusion. Oh, that didn't come up in the entry interview, did it? The CEO kept that one quiet until I got there. Yeah. So that was a bit of a learning. So, having to take a company international built on Cold Fusion, that wasn't going to fly. So we did have to re-architect, and we simplified things when we looked at things. And then we had to pick the appropriate technology to go forward. We looked at containers, that type of technology. We jumped straight into serverless. Let's go all in. Let's see what happens here. So we picked the appropriate technology and ran with it. So today, those companies I was mentioning before, I nearly spewed the one that was on Medicine Ave, but they now put through around about 600 concurrent users per hour, and we're fine, built on serverless. We're very happy with it. Any questions on that? I expected people to start throwing things at you. You put serverless into production? What are you, crazy? Yeah, partly. We had to think differently about my team and what we actually did. to help them grow and understand how those international markets worked. One of the things I implemented was that no matter how busy my team was, 4 hours a week, they were to put down everything and go work on some innovation, whatever it was. It could be, some of them worked on image processing, some of them worked on things that were totally unrelated to psychometrics and psychology. Just go and try it. And what we got out of that process was people coming back to us with frameworks that they could use and actually implement in their day-to-day work. And we also got some other interesting things, like one of the guys built a VR app that plays cricket, but let's leave that aside. But it's all interesting learnings for going forward. The other thing I wanted to introduce was not just a reason to stick my car up on the wall, is I wanted people to bring their outside interests into work. So for example, one of my guys flies drones. And what that encourages is people to think differently, to think outside of Australia, think internationally about what they're doing. Then we had to scale the team. The other little secret that my CEO kept from me when I joined was how big the team was. I had 7 people. I've got a few more than that these days, but not too many more. And what I really wanted to do then was scale the team very, very quickly, but I was resource constrained. So what I did was not outsource, but team with a lot of people that could help me in that process. So they became true business partners. For example, cybersecurity, I got an expert in that helped team with me. They have a person that comes in and sits with our team 1 day a week. Same with Two Red Kites, who are fairly popular around Brisbane. Same with running the AWS infrastructure. So we've got experts in to help. The people I chose to hire, knowing that I had restricted resources, were those people that sat nicely in a Venn diagram. I think there's a rule today that you couldn't present without a Venn diagram, so this one's mine. So they had to have, and you have to spell business right as well. So you have to be in that crossroad of business, technical coders, and infrastructure was what we really valued. So they're hard to find, but they were the people we really grew internally. Okay, so moving along about changing the mentality that was in Stafford of a small company that needed to grow internationally, that we needed to change a lot of the business. Now, we're a product company, which means that I have a unique insight of how to deliver the product around the world. So I need to influence each of the areas of the business to actually go and support that task. Now, when you do a psychometric assessment at Revelian, we have to, by law, offer phone support for people doing the actual assessment. If you think the score is wrong, which most people do, you can actually phone and talk to one of our psychologists and they'll explain how badly you scored, or what are your other key strengths, I think is the way that my psychology team put it. Now, when you look about going internationally, you have to work out, well, how am I going to follow the sun? How does that model scale? And what we did was actually look at, well, that's the law in Australia. Let's consider the international law, and maybe I don't have to offer phone support. Now, if you need support and you happen to be in Pakistan, which oddly is one of our growth regions, then you will get a bot on the other end rather than a psychologist. I would argue they're one and the same. I was just checking that Beth is no longer here. But yeah, you can have different support models and you need to consider how that's going to scale and follow the sun around the place. Legislation. How many people here actually market to various GOs in business? This is the biggest nightmare in the world, is it not? How do you meet all these different legislations from time to time? ISO, everyone says, do you meet this ISO standard? And then you go to the next region and there's a different ISO standard. Like you go, doesn't International Standard Organisation mean it's all the same? But I don't know about you guys, but every time I fill in a tender, there seems to be a different set of requirements. And that's just in Australia, and this grows exponentially around the world. We have to meet GDPR. In Australia, we have a lot of government clients, so we do IRAP as well. Anyone here do IRAP? Oh my gosh. Like, it is just a nightmare. And I'm dealing with a large company at the moment that makes tanks and planes. And they can't even tell me if that's going to be the standard in 6 months' time. And I'm going, you guys write the damn thing. They said, oh yeah, but we get breached all the time with people that have IRAP. So mandatory reporting, it just goes on and on. This is one of our biggest challenges and one of the things I don't think we've particularly solved well. How do we actually meet all the different legislation around the world? And it's changing all the time. America are trying to get their own GDPR. How they're going to get 52 states to agree to something, I've got no idea, but it's a real problem, how to meet all this legislative requirement everywhere we go around the world. Strategy and board. So I'll start with the board. I really wish my board was this professional. No, I said them a disservice, but again, it's a part of that whole culture. The board was only used to dealing with Australia, so they don't provide the advice and guidance you expect from a true board when you're thinking about going international. So it's up to me to educate them about what are the questions you should be challenging my senior leadership team with when you're thinking about going international. So, offering support is one of those classic examples.
Did you consider asking the board to see if they could get another external director?
Oh, yes. Yes, I would love to get more people on the board, but I have to work within the resource constraints that I've got at the moment. We can never afford anything. We can afford a sausage, though. So educating the board has been a challenge as well, about changing that mindset to shifting about how do we operate in Australia to differently to how do we operate internationally. I won't talk about and strategy on how to come up with one, but it's really important to have one. Not one that you have in your mind, but one that's written down, you can nail your flag to and say, this is what we're actually doing. I know that sounds pretty obvious, but it certainly didn't exist before I got there. And it again, is one of those things about challenging the board and bringing the whole maturity of the organisation as a whole up to an international level. So strategy became really important. The business, I actually had sales and marketing here, but someone used this term and I loved it so much. I've changed it to the business. This was a real challenge. We have a set of enterprise salespeople that go around Australia selling B2B. When you tell them they're going to sell overseas, they really don't care. If you tell them that you're going to put investment into a product so you can sell it overseas when they're selling in Australia, they really don't care. So you have to bring them on the journey as well by changing their incentive schemes, changing the way they work. That's been really important. The other really interesting part of Revelian that's been difficult to change is the finance. So how do I get money to actually implement change? Again, it's really a journey of maturity. And what I've found really successful on that is introducing our Chief Finance Officer to the idea that there is a return on investment. I heard someone touch on it earlier before about value. And you really have to drag it out of them that there's value in what you're actually doing. And how do you put a dollar value on that? So you get the dollars to spend to actually change the products to go forward. My CFO had the attitude 12 months ago that Cold Fusion was just fine. It had served the business, it had made $8 million a year, it was just fine. We'll just send that overseas. So changing that mentality was a real challenge. There's a whole slide show in retiring debt, technical debt, but we won't go into that either. The big one was culture. I put up some photos of Stafford before. We have about 50 people in that office, but changing the mentality of we're a small company from Stafford, how can we possibly compete internationally, has been a real challenge. So what we've tried to do in that perspective is to make everyone think international. So when we're walking around the office or we're changing a process or we're putting in some new documentation, I challenge everyone to say, well, how does that work in the USA? How does that work in the UK? How does that work in Thailand? So changing that culture so they think outside of Stafford City has been a real learning experience. And some of the other things we've done, some of the more fun things we've done, is every time we sign a deal, we have a party that's themed on that particular country where we sold the deal. And that has really helped to get the guys into this idea that we're an international company. Where we're physically located doesn't really matter. We're an international company moving forward. So there's some of the challenges we've had with culture. And those culture things probably come all the way from the top. As I was saying before, our board is quite small time thinking. Changing their thinking to be big time is great. And that from the CEO all the way through. All right. I'm going to finish up with 10 lessons that I've learned. And I think these are the really ones. So to understand, get a strategy and write it down. I know it sounds obvious, but for Revelian, that was a key point, and something I could pin all my hopes and dreams on was that strategy document. The culture, think global first. Especially if you're having success locally. I came into a company that had been running successfully for near on 20 years in the local market, and everything was just rosy. How do you actually extend that company to think internationally? Another one that sounds pretty obvious, but maybe harder to do, is get the technology right. And that's just not about what I do in implementing technology, but that's making sure the technology I implement is able to support the markets I want to go to. So, you know, that's been something we've implemented well. Every part of the business. So like I said before, whether it's sales or marketing, whether it's the finance, whether it's the guys that sit at the front desk, I ask them every time they're doing a process, how does that work in a different geography? So they understand that we're a global company moving forward. Be influential. So you probably gathered I took a lot of this on board. It was definitely a KPI for me when I came into the company, was to grow it globally. But it's been a real challenge as well. I've really enjoyed moving Revelian from an Australian story to an international story. And that's comes through in our sales success as well. But it is, oh, there you go. That'll speed the end of the presentation up. It is up to me. And I've enjoyed influencing. Talent with experience, talent that doesn't have this Stafford mindset has been really good. And I think one of the things I've got out today is that I would like to grow into more distributed teams. I think that would really help moving along. So that's something I'm definitely going to implement after hearing today. Vendors and partners, pick people you can grow with. So I needed to bolster the team, but also have vendors that will actually support the journey. AWS is a classic, data centers everywhere. It makes it really easy for me to move internationally. And legislation, I put it down there because it's an absolute nightmare. I don't have it solved, but standards and security across the globe is a big problem, and it's something that you need to keep in the front of your mind, because if you don't, it's going to hurt your sale. We're not going to sell product if we don't actually meet the legislation around the place.